Hey, good evening. Okay, so I am going to try this. And if I do this more, I will probably go ahead and upgrade from my free StreamYard account and pay for the StreamYard so that I can stream lives on YouTube. But I have come to YouTube to emote. Um, so this is going to be sort of a longer, probably be a longer video. However, I have a lot to say on this topic, and unfortunately, I cannot show it on the screen because I have the free StreamYard. But I wanted to come and talk about um, why I've chosen to stop posting memes and the very common posts about how other people's behaviors need to change and focus on what I'm learning about myself and reflecting on in me that I'm working on. And it's kind of a long story. The most common thing that I would say I see right now when I get on social media is people posting about narcissistic people, toxic friends. There's always a meme about how, you know, the common denominator is you while you have no friend. I cannot even like off the top of my head come up with like all the memes you see, but I know you know what I'm talking about when you get on social media. Someone is always subliminally venting about a negative personality or a personality defect, a friendship or spouse or anything of the sort. But it's always like a pointing the finger post of how this other, it doesn't have to be a named thing, but just, pointing out these personality types. And a lot of times, like the hot one right now is the narcissistic personality type or the toxic friend or the toxic personality type. And I used to post those type of memes and those types of posts all the time, because that's what I experienced, like those posts that they would hit home because I knew I was experiencing the personality types, the toxic friendships and the attacks and the toxic behavior. So I liked seeing them and relating to them and posting them myself. And I usually will go into a long spill about experiences. I keep people's identity and names out of stuff, and I try not to put identifiers, but I'm a very transparent person on my social media. So I would go into like experiences and how things made me feel and these personality types. And it was always like a pointing the finger type of thing. So let me back up how it started. Because it pretty much started when I decided to separate from my husband. At that time, I was very confused about what I had been through in that relationship, some of the stuff I was experiencing, the behaviors that were confusing. I was confused about who, what I did wrong, like what my part was, because I was like made to believe that it was all me, all me. So, a common thing. And this is when I came on YouTube and I started hearing people talk about narcissistic abuse. And when I tell you, when I started hearing those YouTubers talking, there were several people I loved listening to. Richard Grannon, Sam Vaknin were like two of the first ones that they gave me so much information. Dr. Romney, Lisa Morano. Oh, I can go on and on. There's so many. Permission to Exist. Her channel's excellent. I love listening to her still. Um, and I just got into like these um these YouTube channels about narcissism, and I learned about narcissism. Before that, I thought narcissism was just someone who liked to look in the mirror all the time and talk about themselves. I had no clue about what narcissistic abuse was. I really had a very, very limited information about it. So, and it made me realize what I had been through, and it woke me up and it made me feel validated. It made me feel like I had a tool now. Now I know what's going on. I can do something. I can move on from here. I'm not a bad person. So it was very, very, very helpful to me. So I don't want this to be confused with me saying that there's not a space for that type of information on the web. I think it's extremely important for people to understand what that is, especially if they're going through it. So, I, being the person that I like to be transparent, hoping that I can um, share my, what I've been through, and somebody else, it can help someone see what they're going through and that they're not alone and that other people experience. That's pretty much always my motivation for sharing personal things about myself online. So I did. I had a little couple vent sessions, a little bit. I think I might have deleted those posts, but my anger, especially when I started understanding like the narcissism. And I did get a lot of people who would reach out to me and say, "Thank you for your transparent post because I'm going through this too." So I think, it is good to be transparent. But this is why I've shifted. So I've had to shift, and I don't regret my time of learning about toxic personalities and learning how to recognize it, learning what to do about them, and learning how to protect myself when I can from the toxic personalities. I think I needed that period and that season that I was in when I was learning those things. And those posts, they spoke to me, and I reshared them because they meant something. But why I had this shift. So after that realization and starting to just really learn about narcissism and get into it, I started looking at other people in my life and behaviors and relationships that were difficult or that I struggled with, and that made me feel similar to the one with my husband, but in a different way, like my platonic friendships. And I started to recognize toxic behaviors in my friends. It got to a point where I started like questioning, is my, certain friends covert narcissists? I got all into the types. I started diagnosing my friends. I did all that. Um, and I when I started to see and recognize the behaviors, which I'm glad I needed to, um, I it was so easy for me to point it out and talk about it. And it was always that person, this person. I went through a period where I lost a lot of friends. And at the time, I was kind of like glad that I was losing those friends. Not glad, I was kind of sad, but also I felt like I see these personality traits that are very negative and toxic, and okay with losing these friends because I want to have healthy people in my life. I'm trying to be a healthy person. So I thought I was just in the season of losing friends. Okay, so, and I was okay with it because some of the stuff I was just really tired of it. I was exhausted. So I started doing different things. I stopped drinking alcohol. I took myself out of environments, certain environments, and I totally sort of changed the way I do life. I got more involved in my church. I'm more, um, I'm more like of a home person and with my family. And so things started to change in my life. So I'm at church and I meet someone who is a friend who became I became friends with, and she was a nice person. And let me back up, sorry. I'm so bad at telling timelines of stories and stuff. Um a couple of my friends that I lost prior to this were I hung on to these friends, and when I tell you they were so toxic. And then one of my friends, she actually it was a short friendship, and I thought she was a different way. And then she actually kind of did something that stabbed me in the back in a way. It was a very hard time. I was very hurt and confused too. So, and I just thought, okay, I'm attracting toxic people because I'm a quote unquote empath. I don't use that word anymore either. But and so I was more on this victim type of mentality of I'm a victim of these behaviors, and I'm a victim of having these type of friendships. And when I posted about it in this way of like, I don't know if you want to call it like virtue signaling. I guess that's what it is when you're always kind of posting about all these negative traits in other people in a way like you don't have any negative traits or you didn't contribute at all to any of these things that happen. Certain things that I see, like, oh, people who um, think that you're argumentative just don't like to take accountability and they're narcissistic. I stay away from them. Like, I see them still a lot on my timeline, some of my friends and people I know. And it's kind of like you're taking a stance of, I'm not toxic, but I see these people are toxic, and you're out, I'm in type of like virtue signaling, basically. Like, you've got it together, and these behaviors, you're a victim of it. I don't know how else to put it, but I did it. I posted that way too. Um, and so back to where I was going. So I'm changing my environment, my circles. I lost all my friends. I mean, when I tell you it wasn't just one or two friends, I think I lost about four friends, five. It was a few. Um, and I'm starting to look at myself. Now, in all of my watching the YouTubes and learning about narcissism, of course it comes up. Hmm, if all these people around are narcissistic or toxic, where do I fall in that? Am I a narcissist? Am I toxic? If you listen to this type of content, and if you experience narcissism in your life and you've been in a friendship or relationship that was even toxic, we don't even have to say it was narcissistic, and you don't question yourself and your emotional, mental health and stability, then maybe you could be a high on the narcissism spectrum. If you don't think like, I hope I'm not. You're Because especially when you're trying to survive in these environments with people that have these traits, you're going to have behaviors that are going to be defense mechanisms, or you're going to start picking up on things to survive, manipulate the situation. You're going to have some toxic behavior. So listening to the content, you you have to not you don't have to, but I started to think, oh, I did that sometimes. Oh, I block people. Oh, I get upset and just like cut people off. So, you know, we nobody is perfect. We all have our things, like are stuff that we need to work out. And so I did question, like, am I the common denominator of all these failed relationships? Like, it can't be everyone in the world is toxic and I am on my pedestal of goodness. So let me just post about all the toxic people while I sit on my pedestal of goodness. So anyway, I went through the period of like really looking back at every single friendship, even my relationship with my ex-husband, looking at the way I behaved, some of my, responses to fear, to wanting to have to be feel seen and cared about, and how I tried to achieve that, and how I was like at times manipulative, playing the victim, gaslighting, the things that I did too. And so that was hard for me to look at. It was hard for me to accept. It was hard for me to sit and see my part and realize that, okay, I could be seen as toxic. This is where it gets so interesting because especially when you're putting those type of posts up, because nobody is perfect and nobody is sitting on a pedestal of goodness. When you have a relationship and a relationship breakdown, it's usually not at the fault of one person. Somewhere in there, somebody lacked boundaries, um, probably was dishonest, didn't set boundaries. Somebody was manipulative. Somebody was probably controlling. These behaviors were probably happening on both ends. Now, I'm not saying that there are not really toxic people who intentionally try to control you, or who are trying to have their way all the time. Yes, obviously that's happening. That's like was one of my biggest revelations. But when you're trying to maneuver those relationships, how you behave, how I behaved, trying to figure out how to like maintain a relationship with somebody like that. I behaved in a lot of passive aggressive and toxic ways. So that's where I think it's kind of interesting and funny because when I see the posts, and some of them, some people that I see their posts still, and these were like the friends that I'm no longer friends with, and I see the posts, and I'm like, "That's you. That's not me. That was you." And they're probably thinking when they saw my post, "That's you. That's not me. That you're that." And so I'm pretty sure, like when you put a lot of times when a person, like when you put up a post like that, like pointing the finger, and oh, the wise old tale, when one finger's pointing, four are back pointing at you. Oh my goodness, why is that true? I hate it. Why is that true? So yeah, that's basically what it is. So getting back to this last one. Okay, so I'm at church, I meet somebody. Another thing, this thinking that you're going to meet healthy people at church, please don't have that expectation. There are a lot of unhealthy people in church. And I'm glad they're there. I'm glad we are all there. I'm going to put myself in the bunch. I'm glad we're in church trying to get well. But I went to church and threw myself in, embraced church and volunteering and things because I wanted to meet healthy people. And that was the expectation I had. So when I met someone who did start showing behaviors of being controlling, manipulative, um, all these behaviors, I was a little like confused, and I was like, okay, I cannot lose this friend because then it's really me. So I forced myself, like didn't make boundaries, wasn't honest about the way I felt about certain things that were happening, didn't speak up and say, hey, I need some space. Like just easy things that you should be able to say to people. Because if someone says that to me, I'm like, okay, no problem, or whatever. If someone apologized for something, but so trying to keep that friendship going because I just desperately didn't want it to be me. I didn't want to be have to say, okay, this church friend didn't work out, so it has to be me. 'Cause I am the walking billboard of toxicity. So and I just I continue to go with it. Anyway, of course it went down in a burning flames, a burning like a burning ship flaming to the ground. Um and it took a lot of reflection for me because I was so confused about how the person got so angry about something so small. Um and then I realized that I didn't apologize for hurting their feelings with the mistake I made because I was so busy trying to defend myself. And so I started thinking about all the other times and all these other friendships I've had that did not work out where I did things that were wrong and hurt that person. But instead of owning up to it, I try to defend my behavior. So that one thing came really clear to me. I did end up apologizing. It was something silly. I forgot to invite them to lunch because I really didn't want to go to lunch with her. I wanted to go to lunch with the other person, so I didn't invite her, which is another thing. Why couldn't I just tell her I didn't want to go to lunch with you? We spend a lot of time together. I wanted to have some time with somebody else. That's why I didn't invite you because I was so afraid to tell the truth. And part of that was because um, in other friendships and relationships, I couldn't tell the truth. And so, and that's why it's important to heal because you think that because you had to operate a certain way, like by being dishonest or, hiding the truth or covering your tracks when you're really just trying to protect yourself from overexposure to someone. Maybe they're not even toxic or narcissistic. We don't even have to say that. They're just probably getting on your nerves for a time and you need a break. Like, that's okay. But to not be able to say, yeah, I like spending time with you, but today I didn't want to. I just want to hang out with this person. So that's the choice I made, and that's okay. Um, so anyway, that friendship went down in a flame. And I realized that um by me searching so hard to identify toxic traits and things that um, other people were doing as an offense to me, I was completely ignoring things that I do in relationships, even ways that I don't protect myself from people who are going to be unhealthy. Even ways that I don't set boundaries, even ways that even though I may have a boundary, when it's crossed, I just let it go. Ways that I didn't speak up. Not even just that, ways that I've been manipulative, lied, um, tried to control the other person. I've ignored a lot of behaviors that I could have seen as how this friendship really broke down and maybe had conversation if I wanted to keep the friendship, which Thinking back, I would say maybe just one of them, two of them I would want to keep anyway, out of the five that I'm thinking of that I lost over that time. But so why I stopped, getting back to why I stopped with those memes about other people who are toxic. Because when you're always looking at what other people are doing to you, you're completely miss your chance to grow so that you can have good relationships in the future. And by me not by me focusing so much on looking at these behaviors and how I can identify, oh, this was I literally would try to to diagnose people covert or narcissistic or overt narcissistic. Anytime something didn't work out, I found a way to make them narcissistic. It was so crazy. But in doing that and having so much fun seeing the memes, oh yeah, that one relates because she did that or he did this. I totally missed, everything that I did and how I could be seen in that same way. How I would cut people off too when I got uncomfortable or didn't talk or expect perfection out of other people when I know I am completely incapable of being perfect, but friends should be perfect with me and loyal. And when they're not, it's a problem. And so yeah, so it's been a huge shift for me because I want to have good relationships. I want to have healthy friendships moving forward. I want to be able to accept people for who they are, the good and the bad, and continue to have be able to have grow a good healthy friendship and have healthy boundaries, talk things out when things go wrong, accept that they're flawed, I'm flawed, and we're all just kind of trying to figure it out. We're just here trying to figure it out. There's a lot. Oh, another cliche: hurt people hurt people. Oh, I hate it. I hate that these are like so true. There's a lot of hurt people walking around and they're hurting people because really they're trying to figure out how to survive this huge world full of a bunch of hurt people walking around, healing from trauma and having these unlearning these unhealthy ways to survive um, this environment. And you can't, it takes a lot of work to be healthy, a lot of work. And you can tell when someone is doing the work. They've done the therapy, they've gone to the groups, they've stopped the unhealthy habits. They've found a spiritual connection. They are doing those things, and you can tell when people are doing that, and you could tell they've put a lot of work into it. And I know that it's possible to get healthy and find a healthy circle, but it's not going to happen if every time you see a post about a toxic person or a toxic quality, it's your chance to be on the pedestal saying, I am on this pedestal of shining light of goodness and everyone else is this, because you're not going to see your part, and you won't be able to have those relationships when you get around the healthy people, or they won't want to get anywhere close to you because they'll see what you're refusing to see in yourself. And looking back, I was able to recognize that too. There have been quite a few people that I've, met and had kind of in my outer circle that kept me at a distance. They kept me at a distance because they had boundaries and they recognized behaviors of mine, and as they should, kept me at a healthy distance from them. And I wasn't at the time seeing these behaviors, but now in the place I'm at now, I'm able to see. I've learned a lot, and I'm able to see behaviors and people that I want to keep at a distance, and I'm working on my owning my stuff and figuring out how to correct these negative behaviors that I have so that they don't continue to negatively impact my relationships with my family, with my friends, people that I go to church with. So, my coworkers, like there's so many people I come in contact with, and I do not want to be the one who's terrorizing them. Like I felt like I was being terrorized by these toxic people. So, and I heard someone on YouTube that I listened to, and her name is Tiffany Buckner. She has a channel called Anointed Fire. I love her channel. And I know I'm going to butcher this statement she made, that it really stuck with me. And I've really, really, really been reflecting on this is when you're around people who have these narcissistic behaviors or toxic behaviors or behaviors that resemble the behaviors of people in your life that were narcissistic or toxic. Because I don't discount that there are a whole lot of narcissistic and toxic people out here. You can never be your authentic self because you're always trying to survive that environment and that friendship, that relationship. You're always having the defense mechanisms, the unhealthy defense mechanisms that you formed to survive them all the way from childhood until into adulthood. You're being the person who has to survive that. So if you want to be authentic, then you do have to learn how to guard your heart. You do need to learn talks what's unhealthy, what you can handle and what you can't, because like I said, nobody is perfect. But I am glad I went through the stage where I didn't learned and watched, a lot of content, read books. Gosh, I forgot this guy. It was great. It was a great book. It was something psychopath. I can't think of it, but when I think about it, I'll put it in the comments. But I read some really good books. Self Care Warrior on Instagram. I'm gonna mess up her name if I try to say it, but she has an amazing book. That I read her book. There was so much information that I took in because I never learned how to recognize healthy communication, healthy behaviors from um, negative and unhealthy communication and behaviors. And I'm not going to break that down because I'm definitely not the YouTube psychologist or the expert on all this. I just understand it because I've listened to so much and read so much. But I needed to go through that so I can see, what I can have in my environment and what I can't have. But you also have to get to a point where you evolve past that and start looking at your part, your behaviors, and how you're opening yourself up to people like that when it is genuinely a person who is narcissistic and you just walked right into that type of relationship or you kept that person around for a long time. There is a point when you have to look at that. Otherwise, it's never going to change. You're going to keep meeting the same person over and over. I will say this last one, the church friend, um, that didn't last long at all. I was able to see certain things and my spidey senses started going off. I was recognizing the red flags and the behaviors, and that's probably why I didn't want to do the lunch with her and wanted to just go by myself, um, because I was starting to recognize that the behaviors were not good for me. And I'm not saying that this person is toxic. I'm saying that everyone has their things they struggle with, they're working through. I mean, this person is in church and she's working on a lot of stuff so on herself, but it wasn't a good matchup for friendship at the time because of where I was at emotionally and learning, how to set boundaries and where I was at and I guess, where that person is or was at. So I'm not saying, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that they're toxic, but there were things that we both did that were definitely toxic. And so that one was quick. That one was that I'm proud of myself that I didn't like suffer a year or more with that. But that was another huge thing that I'm learning is to guard my heart. And in this season, I am okay with not um, trying to go and rush into a whole lot of friendships because I really want to flush through some of these issues that I have and so that they don't continue to negatively impact my relationships. And so I'm really in this season of trying to grow, really, really look at these behaviors, address them, be able to fix them, and also recognize that I'm never going to be perfect. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to fumble the ball, probably a lot because I'm clumsy. I'm going to fumble the ball. But how to fumble the ball and take responsibility and continue to be able to preserve the relationship because I can own my part and I can also speak up for myself when something is done and to me and I need to speak up for it so that we can both move forward or the friendship can move forward or relationship whatever. I'm not even getting into relationship because I'm a long way from even looking for a partner, but um so that things can move forward in a way where we can um not just be calling each other toxic and cutting people off. Like that's the that's the culture of the posting the memes about other people being toxic. So to wrap it up, now on my social medias, I post vulnerable posts about things that I'm seeing in myself that have been destructive for me and my relationships. And I was nervous about doing that at first, but I've gotten a lot of good feedback. I've gotten people who have, given me like very good feedback. And I can't like show you here, but I'm not like going and totally throwing myself under the bus, of course. I'm just kind of just pointing out things that I'm learning and that I'm working on. So rather than posting the memes about the narcissist and the memes about the toxic person, I'm really trying to work on tolerance, forgiveness, acceptance, self care, um, being aware of who is healthy for me and who's not healthy for me, and not having to put a label on it by saying this person is toxic or that person is narcissistic. How about it's just for me, it's not healthy because it could be okay for someone else. And when I do that, I I have to say, when I say these behaviors are not healthy for me, what I'm seeing show up with this person is not healthy for me, then I have to look at what's going on with me to be able to accept why it's not healthy for me. And that forces me to look at how I'm showing up in relationships and it's helping me grow. So that is why, in a nutshell, in a 40-minute nutshell, I stopped posting with the toxic memes. If you see me post one and it slips through, it's because I'm probably just having one of my fumble the ball moments and point it out to me. I'll appreciate it. But I hope this was helpful to someone, even if it's just one person who follows upon my YouTube channel and listens to this live stream. And I am going to probably try to do some more. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Bye.